Nearly choked. The Red Valley, a Green Ember fanfiction. Content warning. This story is not intended for children. It contains gore, violence, and other mature themes. Recommended age range is 14 and up. Chapter 1. The rain fell in blasting cold sheets, pounding the ground in a fury and immediately soaking any passers-by that happened to get caught outside. The wind whipped terribly across the empty streets, doing mischief with anything that wasn't tied down. Through the blinding mist came a figure, cloaked in gray, hurrying along the streets in a determined manner, occasionally ducking underneath any overhangs that could lessen the force of the rain, but continuing steadily on. The wind caught his cloak, throwing back the hood to reveal the soaked face of a brown rabbit, eyes squinted and teeth chattering from the sudden chill. He hurriedly pulled the cloth back over his eyes and dashed on. He approached a tall building of stone that stood in the center of the king's warren, slowing his pace to meet the soldiers that stood guard outside. "Who goes there?" one called warily. "A friend of the king," the hooded rabbit replied calmly, shouting to be heard above the rain. "State your name and business," the other soldier insisted. "My name is Luther Haverson, and the business is mine." The two guards shared glances, then nodded. "You may enter, and welcome." Luther waved in reply as he entered through the heavy door that was open to him, and quickly found himself inside a royal hall. He almost held his breath as he stood stock still, looking at his new surroundings. The stone walls were adorned with beautiful tapestries, woven of gold, purple, and scarlet thread that told tales of old. Battles, victories, events, and some portrayed images of the royal paraphernalia passed on from kingship to kingship. In the middle, at the farthest end of the hall, was a banner, larger and more glamorous than any other, that had the picture carefully woven in it of a crown, shaped in the light so it appeared to be fire, with many more flaming jewels that had many shades of orange and red. However, Luther's eyes were drawn to the center of the masterpiece, where a large, sparkling green emerald stone was embedded in the crown, like a green oasis in the midst of a flaming desert. Luther knew better, however. That emerald had just as much fire as the appearance of the relic, just in a different form. He did not take any more time to ponder the decor. He took notice of his shivering, his dripping cloak on the lush rug, and hurried off to what he hoped was the king's counseling chambers. He had only been to the king's warren a few times, and inside the royal palace only once. He called upon his memory to aid him as he wandered carefully through the brightly lit halls. He also wondered at the fact that it was devoid of soldiers, none coming to confront him. He hoped that all was well. Suddenly, a shout sounded behind him. "Halt!" Luther stopped in his tracks, then turned to see 3 bucks in the royal armor approaching behind him. He spread his hands wide in a friendly gesture. "State your business here," the largest soldier growled. "I must see His Majesty, sir," Luther replied. "What business have you with the king?" said one of the other soldiers warily. "My name is Luther Haverson, and I am from the 76th Warren. My business with the king is urgent and most private." The largest buck narrowed his eyes. "Are you familiar with the king? Does he know who you are?" "Yes, sir. We have met, briefly, before." "Do you know the royal seal?" Luther let out a stream of air from between his lips before replying. "By blood we are bound, by our fruit we are judged." It was a tense few seconds before the guard nodded. "We will show you to the king's council room. Let us hope you are as honorable as your name." His lip twitched for a moment before he spun around, and the two other soldiers positioned themselves behind Luther, and in that way he was led to the door of the council room. He could already hear steady voices from behind the sturdy oak door, crossed with bars of iron. The guard in front pounded twice on the door. The rabbits inside ceased in their conversation, and a muffled voice called, "Enter."